All right, this video is gonna be to start out with. We'll talk about layers, and in AutoCAD we use what we call layers to do our drawings on. Each layer has a name. It has a color, a line type, and a line width, and then there's some other settings we can assign to it also. So we draw visible lines on the visible layer. We draw hidden lines on the hidden layer, center lines on the center layer, like that. And it gives us the ability to control each layer individually. And we can turn them on, we can turn them off, we can freeze them, we can unfreeze them. Freezing means you can't edit anything on that layer. I should have opened it earlier. Let me open up a sample drawing so you can kind of see. Here's an architectural drawing, and all the dimension is on a dimension layer. The walls are on a wall layer. Windows are on a window layer. The tags are on different layers. And this particular files from an architectural class has lots of layers, because in architectural drawings we have lots of stuff, okay, that can go into the drawing. And we want each one, to be separate so that we can control them, turn them on, turn them off. Well, the work that you'll be doing, let me get one of the files from this course. So here's a drawing that you'll be doing a little bit later on in this course. You can see the different colors. We've got red for our visible or object lines, green for hidden lines, blue for hidden lines, green for center lines, and magenta for the dimensions. Okay, and we can let's say we want to hide our dimensions, so we could turn them off. Okay, that's just, it just makes it a lot easier, because you have to understand AutoCAD is just not a basic, but it's a generic drawing tool in which you, the operator, controls everything. Unlike Inventor or SolidWorks or Revit or some of the other 3D modeling type softwares, the software is already set up to control a lot of these things. And it uses layers in the background. You just don't know what it's doing. Let's go, and these videos here are just kind of introducing you to what's covered in the first few pages of chapter 4. But if you'll open up a new drawing, and on the home tab right here in the layers panel, this is a quick way to deal with everything layers. Now, the basic ACAD template just has one layer, and it's called layer 0. In some of these early exercises, the book will tell you to draw on layer 0. And that's fine when you're just learning how to do things. That's quite all right. Once we start creating layers, you don't want to draw on layer 0. I teach my other AutoCAD classes to create a layer that we call construction, and then you draw all of your construction lines on that construction layer. And the reason for that is, once we start, when we get to a point where we're creating blocks, what's known as a block, and think of it as a catalog item of something that's used quite often, like a door or a toilet fixture or a bolt or a spring or something like that. Something that's used quite often is we would create a block, and then we can just insert it into our drawing that we're doing. Well, when you create blocks, you create the block on layer 0. And then when it's inserted into your drawing, it inherits the whatever layer is current when you insert it. So that's why I encourage you not to draw on layer 0 once we start creating layers in this particular class. All right, now how do you create layers? The best way is to open up your layer properties here. Okay, and I've had mine docked over here to the side. Yours may be out in the middle. But I've had it docked to the side before, and I have it set to collapse. And so that's like right here, this auto hide. And I'll turn it on so it's on all the time here for you. And let me undock it and pull it out here in the middle. When you expand it out, you'll see a lot of information out to the side, in addition to what we're going to be doing to start with. But let's create a new one. So we'll go a new layer, and then of course you give it a name, and let's call this one visible. Okay. Now when you create a new layer, it inherits the properties of the layer immediately preceding it. So it inherited all the properties of the 0 layer. Well, I want to change the color of this one. So we click on the color box. And these are all the colors that are available. You got all of these here, 255 of them. You've got these things, these things. It's rare, you're not going to use those that often. Most of the time, you're going to use the primary index colors here. Okay, red, yellow, green, cayenne, blue, magenta. The white, index color 7, is what we call white black. Okay, so when you have a black background, it will appear white. When you have a white background, it will appear black. Okay, as opposed to this one, let me go back into there. As opposed to this white, which is 255, which is just pure white. And if you have a white background, you won't be able to see it. So anytime we specify white, I want you to use index color number 7. All right, so now our visible layer, we're going to make it red. And so we'll say, okay. The line type, in this particular case, we're going to leave it as continuous, a solid line, because a visible line is drawn as a solid line. So we'll say, okay. And the line weight, which is the thickness of it, this being a medium-sized line, should be a 0.6 millimeter. Okay, now that is the thickness of the line when it is printed on a piece of paper, or if it's exported as a PDF. Okay, which is basically the same as printing. It's not, when it's looking at it on the screen, it is not 0.6 millimeters thick. Okay. All right, so now we want to create another new layer. And let's call this one hidden. And we want to change the color. What do I have? Okay, let's go with cayenne, just to start with, okay? Now you're going to see in a lot of the videos, excuse me, you may see different colors for layers. Don't freak out about it. Some of the instructions that you're going to get in the book and then later in the class when we're creating layers and creating our template files, the colors may be different from what we're seeing here. So don't worry, don't get hung up on that. Okay, for the line type. Now hidden line has a dash line, so we have to load a line type. And so we click on the line type, we go load. And these are all of the line types that come available in AutoCAD. The ones that have ISO in the name are a metric line type. Okay, so we're going to scroll down past those. You can see we've got some different ones: border, center, dash, dots, dashed. Dashed is different from hidden. Okay, just understand there is a difference there. fence, gas line. Here we come down. We want the hidden right here. And as you can see, there's three hiddens. There's a standard hidden, a hidden 2, which is half the size, and then a hidden x2, which is 2 times the size of the regular hidden. Now, line type, there is a file buried in AutoCAD that has the definition of all these line types. And it's almost like a computer programming file, in that within the file it'll say a hidden line type, and it will say like line, and then however many units long that line is supposed to be. Okay, it might be 0.2 units, 0.25 units, 0.1 unit, something like that. But it's in units. It's not in inches. It's not in millimeters. It's in units. And then there'll be a comma, and there'll be a blank for a certain distance, and then a repeat. Okay. And so it's a computer file, and AutoCAD understands this is, when I say I want a hidden line, this is what AutoCAD's going to draw. This is why you cannot copy from a metric to an imperial drawing, or from an imperial drawing to a metric drawing, because the line types are in units, not measurements, not inches, not millimeters, but in units. Okay, so we want to load the hidden line type. So we'll go OK. And then we select it here, and we go OK again. And we're going to change the line thickness to a 0.3. All right, and we'll create another line type. The center, and we'll change the color of center. Let's make it green. And we're going to change the line type. We have to load a center line type right there, center. Select it, and it's a 0.3 thickness also. And then let's create a construction layer. And let's make it yellow. A continuous line type. And for the line thickness, we'll make it default, because we really don't care how thick it is. Now, since this is a construction layer, we're going to, right here, we're going to say no plot. And so this, whatever you set in here in your layer property manager, will become the default for that particular layer. So if you own or freeze or lock, that means that that layer in its default state will be on, frozen, or locked. Okay. Well, we're going to set construction to no plot, because when we print a drawing, we don't want the construction lines to print. And this is just a way of doing that without having to physically turn the layer off. Okay, and so now we've created a series of layers. So I'm going to close my layer property manager. And here I can select what layer I want to draw on. Now, if over here we have the properties palette, and whatever we're drawing, or we have on our drawing space here, this will show the properties for it. And so let me put a line in here. And if I click on that line, well, let me change layers here and you'll see. Okay, so you notice how this changed to by layer, because everything, that's normal for us. If I select this line, it tells me it's on the construction layer. And it tells me the properties for this is by layer, by layer, by layer, for my line type and my line thickness. Do not individually change things here when you're drawing. Always change your layer. Don't stay on your 0 layer and then say, oh, I want to draw a hidden line, so I'll change this to hidden and then go with a line. Because now you see your line is white. And the problem is when you make a change over here in properties, it stays until you change it again, regardless of what layer that you have switched to. Okay, so I go to my visible layer, I draw another line, and you can see I've got a dash mark because that's what I've set over here in my properties. So do not make changes over here. Okay, yes, it is there. It is a tool that we can use. And I'm not going to say you're never going to use it, but it's rare that you would use it. Okay, rare. So all of these should remain by layer. Okay. Say you've drawn something and you forgot and you've got it on the wrong layer. So it's real simple. You just select it and then you can come up here and you can change it to the layer that you want. Okay, that's pretty easy to deal with. Okay, so that's a lot of the things. Now there is an issue with center lines in which we will we're going to deal with line type scale. Now, I'm going to draw a series of lines here for you to see how these things work. Okay, now the hidden line is pretty simple as far as repeating the pattern because it's just a dash and then a gap and then a dash and a space. The center line is different because there's a long dash, a space, a short dash space, and a long dash. And the longer you draw the line, those patterns change. If you draw the line too short, there's no dash in it. Okay, so we have a thing that's called line type scale. And within line type scale, you change the scale of the line type. Duh. Okay, it's kind of redundant to say that, but that's what it does. In model space, which we're working in model space now, sometimes you'll want to change the line type scale so that you can actually see the pattern of the center marks or the center lines. But once we start doing paper space, which is where it would be to the layout tab here, and this is not a good example of it. Let me go to the tool slide drawing here. And if I go to my layout, my paper space, this is where we have a piece of paper with a title bar and the border, and all of our other information. Let me turn my dimensions back on and turn those off. Okay. And so this is what your drawing would look like when it's ready to print. Now, when we set line type scale, once we start doing paper space and drawings for printing, we would set our line type scale so that our dashes and all of our line types appear correct here in paper space, ready to be printed. Okay, and that means that these hidden line dashes should be about 1/8 of an inch long. The center line dash in the middle should be about 1/8 of an inch long when it is printed. Okay, now what we're doing to start with, we're here in model space and we're not concerned with printing. So if your center line is too short for a pattern, you can adjust the line type scale for that particular, so that it appears right in model space. But we have a couple of different ways that I want to introduce you to line type scale. One is global. It changes everything in your drawing. The other is individual or specific. Okay, so if I want to do a global line type scale, which is what I would usually do to make sure all of my hidden lines are scaled the right size. Just on my keyboard, I type LTS, line type scale, and press enter, and it asks me for a value. Well, default is 1. That means that the all of the line types will appear as they are written in the line type file. Okay, so if I want to change this to something smaller, we'll say 0.5, and then enter, you can see it changed all of those center lines. It gave me the pattern that I've got here, but it also made everything else smaller too. So let me undo that. In this particular case, I've got this one line that I need to adjust the line type scale on it. So I would select it and go to my properties. You can right click and come down here and go properties. I keep it open over here on my side as a toolbar because I use it a lot in checking and grading drawings. So I just keep it open all the time. And so I can come here and go to line type scale and I can change it. And sometimes you just don't want to go 0.5 by default, so you may have to play around a little bit with it. So I'm going to try 0.8. That didn't work. 0.7. That didn't work. 0.6. That didn't work. 0.5 worked. Okay. So in order to get it to show up in this particular length of line, I had to change it to a 0.5. But you see, it only changed that 1 because that's what I had selected. And to kind of stop with that, once we start doing paper space, borders and title bars and things like that, line type scale becomes much more important, okay, in what we're going to be doing. Now, let's see what. A couple more minutes. Let me talk about selecting items. When we've got a couple of different ways of selecting. We've got a rectangular selection and a lasso selection. So if I left click my mouse one time and then drag my cursor, you can see it creates a rectangle. And this is my selection window. If I go to the left, it's green. If I go to the right, it's blue. And what this means is that if I'm selecting things to the left like this, it will select whatever that crossing window crosses. Okay, it doesn't have to be totally inside, just whatever I cross, like I crossed that line right there and it picked it. Okay, and so I do it. If I do it again and go to the right, it only selects what's totally enclosed within that rectangle. And that's, you just have to kind of remember this, because sometimes it's easier to go one way, sometimes it's easier to go the other way. And you know, you can certainly click individual objects, but oftentimes if you're selecting a lot of stuff, it's easier to use a crossing window. The other is the lasso. So you click your left mouse button and you hold it down, and you can draw a lasso around something. And you can notice the colors, it works the same way. So if I go to the left, I just have to cross something. If I go to the right, it has to be totally enclosed. So you see it only selected that one, but if I come this way, anything I cross. So that's a couple of easy ways on selecting things.